What if the end of the year isn't about fixing what's broken, but about unlocking what's possible? Welcome to our year end reset, a four-part series designed to help you engage these final days of 2025 and unlock your potential for 2026. I'm Dr. Janyne Emsick, and I am joined by my friend and partner in crime, Tisha Parker Kemp. And for the next 4 weeks, we're going to be guiding you through a four-part process: reflect, reframe, reimagine, and reignite, sharing tools that are rooted in neuroscience and adult learning best practices and real stories to help you close this year with clarity and step into the next with momentum. So let's begin. Tisha, do you want to get us started?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Janyne, for this opportunity. I love our conversations. And I think today we wanted to talk about the topic of reflection. And
Yes.
perhaps more specifically, if we can talk about this from the world that I live in adult education, which is kind of framing this reflection as part of the learning and a leadership accelerator. And when I think about learning, particularly in this reflection and how that real world application is brought into the conversation, it typically means that the person, that learner, is kind of taking in information. They're taking it in, and then before they actually move on or go to whatever is next, it's really imperative for them to hit that pause and reflect. So from an adult learning perspective, we know that adults learn best when they reflect on the experience and extract meaning from that experience and actually try and figure out how do they integrate that into the daily work that they're doing. What in the context of that new lesson, that new information that they're taking in, what can they not only learn from it, but apply and integrate and synthesize and make
Mm.
meaning from it. When you contextualize it, that's when it really starts to become more meaningful. And I run a 12-week booster program, and this is really timely because our capstone presentations were just today, and the current cohort offered their presentations, and we have a tool that we use in order to give the group reflection and the aggregate of all of that feedback, all of those insights from the audience, the other participants. They provide that, we aggregate it and provide it to each presenter. So they have something really tangible to then reflect on and to try and figure out what do they actually do with that. When they reflect, they're not only engaging the prefrontal cortex, but they're reducing the emotional load. They're
Mm.
increasing that strategic clarity. And the neuroscience of adult education really provides us with that evidence-based approach. We know that that works. We know that that works. And, you know,
So,
I'd love, yeah, I'd love to invite your insights on that.
yeah, I'm thinking about how do we apply that to a year in reset for leaders, and thinking about how we look back at our year, and often I like to refer to these as after action reviews, and do this every year. And so look back at our year and learn from it so that we can create a connection between what we've learned to what makes our next year even better. And I'm thinking about, have you ever reflected on the previous year and just felt the weight of being disappointed? And that was, I looked at some my after action review from 2018, and it revealed some. When I looked at what were my wins, what were the things that didn't go the way that I wanted them to go, and what were my learnings. It revealed that there were these painful gaps in what I called my financial stewardship and health that I just couldn't ignore. And I felt stuck in regret. And I discovered this principle called the opportunity principle from the University of Illinois. And that research showed that often when we're looking back and we're reflecting, our deepest regrets reveal our greatest opportunities for growth moving forward. And suddenly, all these painful gaps that I'm looking at, they weren't failures. They were like my roadmap to what's next. And having done that in 2018, the beginning of 2018, so how many years is that? 6 years or so ago? It's just
Almost eight.
fascinating to look at the transformation from both of these areas. And so that's the difference of kind of looking backwards and having a lens that's opportunity focused as we look forward. So I'd love for you to share the tool that you use with us.
The actually the tool that we use, the 3D brief, is it's it's kind of the framework that we use for a lot of the work that we do. So it offers a really simplified mechanism for the 3Ds, which is, what do we want the presenter in this case to do? What was missing? Perhaps what they could expand on, what we would encourage them to add to that presentation. Whereas the second D would be kind of the opposite of that, diminish. What is something that they could do less of? Maybe something they could remove from the presentation altogether and not lose the value or the essence of the experience. So do, diminish, and duplicate. And the duplicate is, what is that one thing? If they were to revamp the entire presentation, what is that one thing that we would encourage them to keep? Duplicate that. That's the gem or the magical, beautiful piece that offers so much value. And so when we offer that 3Ds in the context of the presenters with their capstone project, it's helping them to provide that insight and something to reflect on that encourages them on that next level. And I had a moment of clarity on this working in other scenarios as well. And I had a one-on-one coaching session recently, and this professional was doing what we're talking about. They were reflecting on the transformation that they were experiencing, and they shared a deeply personal story about how the work that we were doing has not only transformed their ability to communicate on a professional level, but they shared a personal story. And that story was, I'll not share the details of it, of course, for confidentiality, but it was really impactful for me to hear that the transformation was happening, and at such a deep level that they were able to take on higher levels of leadership as a role, being invited to tables at their organization that they hadn't sat at before, and actually feeling comfortable taking up space, speaking
Mm.
up, sharing their ideas. And by their own admission, they would never have done that before. So the reflection, it really helps to appreciate the practical applications of all the stuff that we're talking about. Not just taking information in, but actually doing something and understanding how does that have an impact on what they would do moving forward.
So if we were to apply that to a year-end reset, if I'm understanding kind of what you're suggesting, is that we take the 2025 as the and this kind of taking a look at the next few weeks as our capstone experience and look back and reflect. And so the first thing is the do is kind of what was missing, right? Is that right? So what was missing from this year that I'd like to do differently moving forward? And the next one then is diminish. Is that right? And so diminish is there was more of this than I needed, or this got in the way, and we need to do less of this. And then the third D is remind me,
Duplicate.
duplicate, do more, right? Or yeah. And so what's working that we want to carry forward and add into the future. And so, if I'm not mistaken, you have created a wonderful worksheet that we're going to make available to walk our listeners through that process as the first step of our year-end reset.
And that first step in the context of the year is the things that we want to reflect on. What did we do that worked? What do we want to add to that? What do we want to do less of? And to create, this opportunity of at least a framework that helps us to do that self reflection, that analysis on, okay, 2025 is now behind us. How is 2026 going to be different?
So if I apply that to the example I gave around this assessment that revealed my dissatisfaction with what I referred to at the time was just not having the processes that helped me understand where we were at financially for two businesses and personally, as my husband and I were still kind of integrating into what does it mean to be a married couple that runs two businesses. And so if I was to say, what do I want to do? It would be around I need to have regular processes for check-ins to know what's going on because I'm just tired of not knowing. It's exhausting. Then diminish would be um, uh, bypassing regular meetings that we've scheduled to review these things because other priorities came up. And so we did not prioritize those conversations like we probably should have. And then duplicate would be establishing that structure that we had and actually do it for more than the first 4 to 12 weeks of the year, but do it for the entire year. And that would be, is that an application kind of the model for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would, at this point in the year, I would recommend that these sorts of reflections and mapping out what your 3Ds are, do it now before the calendar starts. So we can go into, if we're celebrating the holidays, we can go into the holidays with clarity on how 2026 is going to be different for us.
We we do a thing called the best year ever, and it's always either the very last days of a current year or the first days of a new year. And it is just a profound experience to begin with this reflection and look back. And so I'm excited for our four-part series that we'll be walking through together, Tisha. And so as we leave today, I'd like to leave you with this. Reflection isn't about dwelling on what's wrong. It's about recognizing what's possible. And so your next step is simple but powerful. And click on the link that's in the show notes and download your year-end reset tool. And this reflection framework will help you identify where your greatest opportunities for growth exist right now. So don't wait. Start your reset today. Hey, thanks, Tisha.
Thanks, Janyne.